Welcome everybody back to another episode of Outer Wilds. Today I have terrible news. Terrible news that I did mention in a community post of mine. I recorded about 90 minutes worth of gameplay of me doing an episode, and then I didn't have audio for it. So that's actually pretty bad because I actually got all things considered in a DLC, I got started on some very interesting things. So, after a lot of deliberation on how am I going to want to structure this episode if I just have, 90 minutes worth of footage with no reactions, and I've decided that I'm simply going to just hop into the game and tell you all a little story. Now, the past few episodes, I haven't really had much idea what I'm supposed to be doing, where I'm supposed to be going, what kind of things I should do. And so I decided that I would look at my ship log, determine, well, what's there left to, where does it say that there's stuff left to explore? The first place it told me had stuff left for me to do was Cinder Isles, which is what I was calling the Midlands before. And so I went there. So seeing Cinder Isles, there's not a whole lot here, right? It doesn't seem like it. There's a lot of buildings, certainly. But surely there wasn't that much that I could be missing out on over here. Until I went into this room with the lamp. When I realized, wait a second. This room isn't just to have a lantern in it for the other room. There's a picture right here. Not only that, a projector right here that shows an image when light is shown on it. So what this is the tower that's literally right outside here at Cinder Isles, which I already knew there seemed to be definitely stuff above the only room that I had access to. I guess there's stuff below here, because there's a secret passage that looks like it goes into this cave. So I hop into my raft, right? I'm like, okay, I gotta investigate. And sure enough, literally right here, there's just straight up a cave. There's not much going on here in ways of cave, other than it is most definitely a cave with a pillar and a bit of vegetation, like roots, I guess, to the trees on top. That's when I found this. And now, of course, I go up this very, very creepy, as everything gets more and more quiet, very creepy room and hallway, as there's this strange misty light coming from around the corner, which honestly, great vibes, but also very freaky. Now, as best I can tell, there's not much that's up here. There's a slide reel, for sure, but as well, there's this planet up here, which, by the way, I've decided I'm gonna call it Rings. Just the planet is just called Rings, because it has rings. It's the only one with rings. This is like the tower that we're on, right? It's got the metal antlers at the top. So I'm like, okay, well, what's this? I notice, wait a second, this is just that symbol. The symbol that I see everywhere. And then I go up here and I say, okay, well, after much considering and using my brain powers to look at and figure out, wait a second, I know what's going on here. I realized I did not know what's going on here. So I took the slide reel and I went to go read it. So let's see what's on here, why don't we? First thing that I notice about this, other than the freaking music, this is a place I've been, right? This is like straight up the tower that's just here. And this looks like video footage, like we're actually somebody, like we're seeing through the eyes of somebody. Next thing that I notice, these guys have the glowing white eyes. It is confirmed I am seeing through the eyes of somebody, probably who also has glowing white eyes. we point at rings, right? The planet rings on the picture frame. My friend here removes the light. Another friend comes in with an artifact. And these are the artifacts that I've already discovered. You remove the light and they go through, which is very curious. So I saw people piling into this building with a symbol. They pile into this building with a symbol. They pile into this building with this symbol. And that's all that's on here. So that was very spooky for me. I have no clue what the heck the Owl Atlanteans are doing, what they think they're doing. What are their intentions? I know they don't like the eye, I don't think. But what the heck are they doing, and why are they bringing the artifact into it? So then I walked over here, and I'm like, okay, let's try this. I find the painting with the thing, and I remove the light. And then there's that behind it. And then I discover what scares me to death. And yes, it very much just seemed to me like the Outlandians, like I couldn't tell if the Outlandians that were down here were just like, were mummified, zombified. They were just skeletons of what they once were. I thought on this possibilities for far too long. I did kind of freeze for a while because I was too scared to move. I didn't know if they would like come to life and eat me. Once I moved in closer to investigate, I realized they were all very freaky looking. And then realized I couldn't actually rule out that this is just that this isn't what they just normally look like. I realized every single one of them seemed to be holding one of those artifacts, and that their artifacts had a green flame on, just like the strange green campfire in the middle, which also had some kind of weird device above it. One of the slots seemed to not have no one there, which seemed interesting. I thought it was going to be like for me or something. At this point, I was pretty late into the cycle, but I decided that, okay, I kind of know what I had to do, right? I had to grab myself an artifact. Well, I still could, since I knew I was going to need one, and try to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do there in this room. Unfortunately for me, I was not quick enough. However, I could go in fresh to the next cycle with a plan of what I had to do. So I was still doing what I had done in like the previous episode, which was know that like, oh hey, if you know, I know the area around the artifact is covered with ghost matter, and I know that ghost matter is neutralized or whatever in water. So I went ahead, took that to mean that, well, I have to wait for the dam to break in order to get the artifact. In the meantime, however, why don't I just go look real quick to check if this tower near the beginning, right next to the ghost matter place, if that also had a spooky green campfire situation, like the slide reel seemed to imply that it had. So I went in, and sure enough, it did, which was very frightening for me, and I didn't know what it meant. Although for some reason in this one, there weren't any empty slots. Since I was waiting for the dam to break, which I assumed took about like 10-11 minutes or so, I decided to overcome my fears and end up sleeping actually at the campfire, because I thought that because I needed, time to fast forward so the dam could break. And once the dam was started being close to breaking, I actually noticed something really cool and useful. So you see here, if I throw my scout onto the dam, that surface integrity actually functions more like a countdown to when the dam's gonna break. That was very helpful for, me figuring out when the dam would break. Once it did, the raft I had been planning on using started floating away. But thankfully, I was able to catch up to it in time, steer it back, and bring it back to where the artifact would be. I ended up grabbing the artifact, and then made my way quickly to the nearest tower to descend its staircase. However, this was when I realized that I was dumb, and the first tower and closest tower has all of its lights flooded, and the fire's out, and there's no green light anymore. So it was useless to me. My plan was not as foolproof as I thought it was. That said, easy solution, go on to the next tower. So finally I was there. I'd walked in. I had my, spooky artifact at the spooky campfire meeting with the spooky skeletons. I even considered for a moment stepping into the empty slot, wondering, well, what is it that I'm supposed to, what am I supposed to do here? Interacting with the artifact wasn't giving me anything. And for a good while there, it felt like I was kind of just back to square one of, no longer having any hint. However, in my desperate attempts to find some sort of interaction, I ended up accidentally, for about 1 second, sleeping at the campfire with artifact in hand. To my surprise, despite immediately waking up from this, everything was gone. I had no flashlight. However, the artifact sort of acted as one for me. And of course, the artifact now had a very interesting green flame on it now, which was, for me, somewhat concerning. As you can imagine, I was pretty terrified of this whole ordeal, but eventually began to push forward very, very slowly, wanting to see everything that I could, which was hard considering I also worried that my light would give me away to anything, anyone, any scary skeletons, or something that could potentially be out there. I mean, I know that you can close the artifact. I'm sure there had to be a reason for wanting to hide your light, right? As I began my exploration, well, I'll just leave you with my silence for this next part. Yep, just like that, I was back to reality. Underwater, flame extinguished, tower fallen over. Retroactively, I deduced that I had been on their home moon. Rings had been in the sky above me, and there were definitely paths, similar paths, rushing waters. Everything that I know about their home planet or moon. Is a moon a planet if it's where people are from? I don't know. The moon, everything I know about it, I seem to match. And I don't know. I think you would be confused too if you would be teleported back to... But I had no idea if it was was I actually there? Was I in a fake dream recreation? Was I in an alternate reality? What did it mean? And why does it feel like... whatever the Allantlarians had planned, this was part of their plan? They hate the eye, so they all teleport their consciousnesses to their moon? I had no idea what the heck was going on, except I knew that I had to go back, and except with more time. I figured, well, obviously I don't have a whole lot of time to explore this parallel universe, this Outlantlarian homeworld, right? So I told myself I simply have to be quicker this next time. And I was quicker. I executed my plan, pretty much the same all over again. I went back in again and was just as confused about the nature of this being reality versus just a dream. I became rather oblivious, however, to the fact that in this realm, my jetpack apparently doesn't carry over. Apparently jetpacks don't carry over into dreams. So Yeah. Now, why has it decided to actually start following one of the paths this time? As I've been exploring, I started noticing this place was a little bigger than I was expecting. And as I reached my first building, for a second, I think that I hear something. So yeah, here I pause, because, yeah, I don't know. To me, it sounded like there was some kind of footstep directly above me, which was sort of terrifying. And when I finally unpaused, well, it just sounded more and more like there were footsteps. Once I deduced I wasn't in imminent danger, I continued exploring. For a brief second, I realized that I could actually light candles when I focused my flame on them, and I could also, extinguish them again, which, is interesting. Seems like there's a light theme in this DLC. As I get into the next building, I hear the weird stepping noise from above me again, but I had no idea, could someone actually be alive in here? Some sort of zombie Owlantlarian? Or maybe just one of them who didn't die? Or maybe they're all still here somehow and this is still part of their master plan that's going on? Like, what the heck? So I continue my wandering and I find some sort of, hand thing that looks vaguely familiar. But shortly after that, my time runs out. And at this point, I was realizing that time was going to be a significant issue since, I wasn't going to have much of it when I'm coming in. So skipping ahead to the next cycle here, I decided to kill some time in the beginning by making sure that I was doing the right thing, waiting for the dam to break. Because I was pretty sure I was, but, had I actually tried any other way? Well, apparently I had been so sure of my, little water fact, that water neutralizes ghost matter or whatever. I'd been so sure that that had been the answer that I had never actually checked if, every other location in the game, there was a way to just get around the ghost matter. And, yeah, there was. This is a great example of how sometimes I can be smart, but usually in pretty dumb ways. I went back in with tons of time to spare this time. I was excited, though I have to admit I didn't, and still don't, know anything about what the freaking heck this place is, or what information I am possibly gaining from it, or will gain from it. I tried to follow a similar path to the last time, and started playing around with extinguishing and lighting the candles, which, apparently, is how you open doors here. I went into this little backyard thing that I saw, where there I found there was some sort of device that looked like the thing I had seen on, the reels. Like there was some sort of interaction or something that I had to do with it, but I couldn't figure it out, so I left it for later. As the music got spookier, I found myself coming across an elevator-looking thing. Now, to preface, I'm not an elevator mechanic. It takes me about a solid minute before I give up, because, I'll figure it out later, I guess. Elevators are hard. In the room next door, I find another giant high-five machine thing that I feel like I've seen in reels before. And much to my frustration, I still can't figure out what I'm supposed to be doing with it. Like, what the heck? What could possibly be the answer? So I go back to the elevator, because, when I'm stumped on one thing, I just go back to another thing I'm stumped on. Trying to figure it out, because, otherwise I'm out of places to go now. Then, I totally intentionally realize that the answer was, of course, light. Here is when I truly begin to question my own intelligence. So using the power of light to operate the elevator, I go down to the next floor and try piecing together what the scenery would look like if I could actually see. So there's caves, there's rocks, there's trees, vegetation, ponds, rivers, some sort of water feature, I guess, generally speaking. I keep going through the cave, terrified as you might imagine, until I find what appears to be an Owlantlarian's instrument. Now, I think I might have seen something like it in an Owlantlarian, picture, and it feels like this is an important detail. though again, I don't know what for. Moving on, I begin the path towards the middle area with a bunch of candles. And what happened next scared me half to death. Somehow, there was an alarm system, which meant if there was anyone here at all, which it certainly felt like there was, they now know I'm here. I knew that the DLC was supposed to have some, like, scary aspects to it, so I genuinely started wondering if there was going to be some Owlentlarian monstrosity going to leap out of the darkness and chase me around like what is it? Outer Wilds turned into a horror game. Though after a few minutes passing of nothing happening, I figure, well, there's only one way to figure out what happens if I just ignore the alarm. I summoned every ounce of bravery I could and pushed forward. For science. And yep, that's what the device above the campfire was for. Thankfully, no actual harm came about me. They were just alarm bells from the waking world that kicked me out of the dream world, which more or less confirmed to me that the world really was like a dream world. Well, I mean, like, well, at least, like, I guess that I existed in both places at once. Like, maybe I'm just real, and but maybe it's there's still too many possibilities for me to make conclusions, but presumably it told me something. Anyways, I went back in, went to the high five machine where I got, or I think I first got kicked out of earlier. Tried messing around with it again, figuring out what the heck am I supposed to do with these things? What could possibly be the answer? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so apparently, if you just use light with these things, you just get telekinetically high-fived across the map, which I have to say, that's pretty freaking awesome. I can highly recommend high-fiving across chasms to be a pretty stellar mode of transportation. Also, the Owlentlarians had to have so many fingers or claws, like, that's kind of creepy to me, but... Anyways, now that I know how to use the high five machines, maybe that opened up a few more areas for me. This clip is from when I realized I could still hear the rushing waters of the dam breaking while inside this world, which was rather unnerving to me as, the entire experienced reality I was in began to rock back and forth. Once that was done with, I tried to go up on the elevator, but turns out you can only go down. So I went back down, realized there wasn't much else down here other than the, what would ring the alarm bells. So I headed back. I ended up back at the thing that looked like a high five machine, but actually wasn't, and realized that with my light, I could like breathe life through it with my light, which like lit up a whole area that I hadn't been to yet. So confused as hell, I go back to where I originally left my tower to find that there was now a path where I had tried jetpacking before, or maybe I wasn't, maybe I just didn't see it, maybe just an idiot, or maybe I just had spawned it into existence. I don't know. Regardless, the path seemed to take me another path into the lower tower, also to like docks and stuff. Down at the docks, I found another one of those breath machines down there, and I noticed that when I activated this one, I could like spawn a raft. And if I extinguished it, the raft would go away, but then I could just like breathe it into existence again. This was very exciting to me, and I quickly made up my mind that I had to find a way to get onto that raft. However, first, I wanted to check out the other area of the path, the lower area of the tower. Now, I ended up on a staircase that took me to a room very similar to its real-life counterpart, except there were a bunch of candles arranged in a circle, and I could blow out and extinguish and light up again for some reason. There didn't seem to be much else in there, so I figured maybe there's like a code or something that I'm supposed to enter that I just don't know yet. Disinterested, I walked back up to the top and found the top section is pretty much the same as in real life too. It's got the, the 3 buildings with the symbols and a picture of, the weird underwater box thing that contains the box that contains something that is, I guess is chained. That is nothing new to me, though no less confusing. Though because I'm still excited about the raft, I went straight back to the breath machine to summon it. To my delight, it came close enough that I could jump onto it. And it led me straight into one of the darkest caves to ever have darkly caved. Ever. My light did absolutely nothing in the pitch blackness I was thrust into, until I was on the other side. A long ravine with some more docks and another huge dark cave at the other side. I jumped off onto the docks, wanting to see what's up. There was another breath machine there that allowed me to spawn in another raft, which was great. But to my disappointment, there wasn't anything else that I could tell at the docks I could see for me to do, which was kind of confusing because unfortunately the universe was ending. I could not explore any further. I was kicked from the simulation, and this is about where I wrapped up the episode. Well, I'll be randomly ending the episode here watching Brittle Hollow eclipse across the sun. Because I'm out of footage to use, because that's all of it, summarized at least. Even though this episode's shorter than my usual episodes, definitely took me longer to make, because I had to, actually write a whole script for the episode. However, I got a new microphone, and hopefully I should be able to avoid these mistakes in the future. That said, I'm likely not to release another Outer Wilds episode, at least, until after the new year, so I hope everybody had a good end to this year. And I hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe would be appreciated. It is not required. And I'll see you in the next one. Can't wait.